There was this recent case of an Indian actor having died reportedly because of misuse of anti-aging supplements.
When we talk about nutraceuticals and supplements, that may be problematic.
Traditional spices like ginger, garlic, these spices actually have an anti-inflammatory effect.
Many randomized controlled trials looking at effect of different compounds, extracts. We developed that healthy selfie that with a simple photo, you can estimate biological aging in the body.
And how can it be integrated into our personalized medicines like the smartwatches, health apps?
One snapshot view of how you're doing today, my sleep quality, my behaviors, and then I want to do an intrinsic capacity clock measurement to see where how I'm doing. We built a biological clock based on blood samples that can predict that decline in intrinsic capacity.
Hello and welcome to People's Healthcast, where science meets everyday life. I'm your host, Dr. Vanita Srivastav, and today we'll dive into the future of aging. What if aging wasn't just a number? What if we could actually measure how well we are aging and do something about it? Joining me is Dr. David Furman, one of the world's leading voices in longevity science, director of Stanford 1000 Immunomes Project, and the brilliant mind behind the IC clock. Let's begin with your breakthrough creation, the IC clock. Can you tell us a little bit about this clock and can it actually measure how well we are aging?
Thank you for that question. So the intrinsic capacity clock was developed under the premise that functional aging is the top priority now in aging research for WHO, who really recognized the decline in intrinsic capacity as a disease in the International Classification of Diseases ICD-11. And so we went ahead and measure in a large population in collaboration with a group in Toulouse in France, declining intrinsic capacity. So this is vision, hearing, grip strength, and that kind of functional aging type of features. And then we built a biological clock based on blood samples that can predict that decline in intrinsic capacity.
So, how can it become a part of our routine healthcare?
Well, we've been in very deep discussions with different policymakers and organizations to start incorporating this clock in the yearly checkup of individuals over 60 years old to evaluate how they're doing and what kind of recommendations to improve that decline can actually move the needle. And so I strongly believe that in less than 5 years, the intrinsic capacity clock will be part of the yearly checkup, at least in the preventative medicine space.
And how can it be integrated into our personalized medicines like the smartwatches, health apps?
So part of the entities that will commercialize this integrate the intrinsic capacity clock as a blood assessment with different wearable data and digital markers, right, of aging. So the intrinsic capacity clock is a one snapshot view of how you're doing today, but the smartwatches and the wearables are indicating activity, right? So those are much related to, say, for example, exercise modalities, exercise capacity, sleep behaviors. All of those will impact in the intrinsic capacity clock overall. And so the idea is I'm following a particular routine. I can track my sleep quality, my behaviors, and then I want to do an intrinsic capacity clock measurement to see where how I'm doing, how I'm improving on that important metric of health.
So, Dr. Furman, you have often said that inflammation is the fire of aging. What is low grade chronic inflammation and why is it so dangerous? Can we detect it early? Are there some blood tests or biomarkers for this?
Yeah, so chronic inflammation is the response to foreign body, for example, an infection, but it can be also the response to how we treat our bodies, the type of quality of the air, the water that we drink, the nutrition, the stress, the quality, all those things known as the exposome will impact the immune system to trigger inflammation and is the most clear predictor of all of the diseases of aging. We've published a paper in 2019 in Nature Medicine showing that inflammation is the root cause of cellular molecular aging. And there's a test that can identify that. It's called inflammatory age clock. It's another clock of aging. It's a blood test and it's being commercialized by one of my companies, Edifice Health.
Great, great. So you have studied aging across diverse populations from the US to Japan to Latin America. What are some of the global what are some of the major differences, global differences in how people age? And also, how would you compare aging for someone living in rural India versus someone living in, say, New York City?
Yeah, wow, great question. I love it. So the ethnical differences are not so important in the determination of how people will age. Um, what matters is mostly the environment, right? We published a paper also in the journal Cell a few years back, where we demonstrate that much of the inflammation that comes from within, from our bodies, is originated in the environment and not genetics, right? So in an Indian population, an Asian population, they will be different, but not so much because of their genetics as it is from the environment. So there are cultural differences. And that is a really good point that you alluded to. How will a person in rural India will differ from maybe a young kid in New York City? That's a great analogy because our organs age at different rates. So maybe my heart is aging faster than my brain, or my muscles are aging faster than my liver. And so those differences will be observed in this type of example where you have someone in rural India who may be very much exposed to the sun. They will have signs of skin aging. They will probably have other signs of cardiovascular aging. But the person in New York City, right, that maybe never sees the sun, will have beautiful skin and will have maybe a better brain, much more stimulated. And so the aging of the organs will depend largely on the exposures that the individual is suffering from.
Now, let's come closer to home, India, from where most of our viewers are watching this podcast. Our cities are overcrowded, they are overpolluted, we have a lot of infectious diseases. What role do these environmental factors play in biological aging?
A major role, a major role. So we know that acceleration of aging in the heart, in the lungs, not so much in the brain, but in the metabolic system, happens in response to air pollution,
Okay.
right? Um, Infectious diseases are a whole different, monster, a different body, because, we've seen repeatedly that early infections, early exposure to infectious disease is actually very protective
Mhm.
during childhood. But definitely, air pollution, stress levels, noise. So I know acoustic pollution is very high in India. I was just a few months ago in Bangalore, and then,
Oh,
and I know that there's a bunch of different areas in the exposures that different Indian populations are suffering from, and that drives accelerated aging. And one way to protect ourselves is to measure where we're at and then take action. Take action could very well be, buy an air purifier for your house, right? Or that kind of doing lowering your stress levels. That's very important. And there are different ways to do that on the mindfulness and yoga and that type of practices.
Yeah, we all tend to do all this in India. It's very
Yes.
popular. Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Dr. Furman, the kitchens in India are filled with traditional spices like ginger, garlic, turmeric, even ghee. So, do these spices actually have an anti-inflammatory effect, or it is merely a cultural belief? Are there some medical
No.
studies that validates their benefits?
Many randomized controlled trials
Okay.
looking at effect of different compounds, extracts, and spices in lowering inflammation. The most typical ones being curcumin, that's a very well known from turmeric, and then also other spices, cinnamon, garlic, which is not a spice, but it is really anti-inflammatory. Pepper, ground black pepper,
Mhm.
simply black pepper has a very strong anti-cancer components in there,
Okay.
and all these drive lower inflammation in the body and control that, keeping inflammation at bay.
Vegetarian diet is common in India. Does this diet slow aging, or we need to have some supplements to meet some nutritional deficiencies?
That's a great question. I tend to, based on my 10 years of research looking at social and nutritional determinants of inflammation and health, I came to the conclusion that many of the diets are imperfect. There's no perfect diet. The Mediterranean diet has really good things, but really bad things. Indian diets, vegetarian diets, vegan diets, all of those have really good aspects of those. Like, for example, nuts in the vegan diet, or vegetarian veggies, fruits and veggies are great, right? Fruits and veggies are amazing. But you guys in India use a lot of vegetable oil. Vegetable oil is not good. It's really not good at all, because that comes from seeds that have a high level of omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, and those are highly inflammatory. The other thing that is important to notice is that in the Indian diet, you typically have a lot of dairy products like yogurt. That's also inflammatory. That there are well-known pathways, milk products, exactly, dairy products. So the other thing, for example, bread. Bread is definitely a high carbohydrate rich food that is highly inflammatory, and so there are benefits of the vegetarian diet, but there's also different compounds that will be detrimental for aging. Yeah.
There was this recent case of an Indian actor having died reportedly because of misuse of anti aging supplements. Are these supplements harmful, especially if they are taken without any medical supervision?
By default, when we talk about nutraceuticals and supplements, we're talking about a category that's called generally recognized as safe, or GRAS. And these are, as the term alludes to, generally recognized as safe. So there should not be any side effects of those. Now, when you start looking at combinations, then there is a very unknown, uncharted territory there, right? So when you start combining, let's say, for example, 50 different supplements that you have no idea how they interact with one another, and you're going too high in your dose, that may be problematic. So I would always recommend to talk to the healthcare provider.
You should take it only under medical supervision.
under medical supervision or healthcare provider that can give you advice on dosages and combinations that are very important when you're interacting those supplements in your body. There's unknown effects.
Now, considering India's vast population and diverse genetics, what role do you think can India play in shaping the future of global research on aging?
First of all, it's an extremely interesting population to study because of the combination of genetics, but also the environment, right? There's many, many different things that are accelerating aging in Indians' environment, workplace, household, cities. So it starts from the household, goes to workplace, and then to the city, right? And so it's a test bed for studying aging research. And now there's many groups, many excellent groups with incredibly solid talents in India studying aging. They're a variety of different academia groups and startups that are now looking into aging research. It's really amazing. I was surprised. I was very positively surprised to see the amount of incredibly great talent in India that are now studying aging research and longevity. So I think it's coming together.
I know. Okay. So now let's talk tech. How is artificial intelligence changing our understanding about aging? And can it actually predict our biological age?
Um, yeah, so artificial intelligence, machine learning are areas that we are started integrating in aging research more than 10 years ago, um, probably 15 years ago. It is helping us to rapidly understand how biomarkers of aging can predict mortality, how drug discovery can be accelerated, how different exposome factors can drive organ aging. So it's really penetrating in every single aspect of aging research, from drug discovery to modeling protein-protein interactions to you name it. So it's very well spread, widespread across the aging communities that are studying health and longevity.
And what do you have to say about its accuracy?
Well, that's a great point. I'm telling you because I'm a leader of
I know.
AI
I know
platform,
that.
and so the accuracy is getting better. It's not perfect. We need a human in the loop to make sure that the answers that AI is giving us are accurate and make sense. So you cannot rely 100% on your good friend ChatGPT or any LLM system there. You have to have a physician, yeah, either a physician in the loop or human in the loop to make sure that the results are accurate.
So, 10 years down the line, what do you see this going to?
Well, it's getting better and better. So the new versions of different LLM systems are not reasoning, but very close to reasoning. Right? You have this very interesting loop. So what I expect in 5 to 10 years is that we're going to have less and less um, needs of having that human in the loop, right? That I alluded to today. If you just let a LLM system or any other AI generative model run by its own, you get around 65%, 60% accuracy in your predictions. You add a human in the loop, you bump that up to maybe 85%. So the idea is that in 5 or 10 years, you don't need that human in the loop. You're going to get over 85 or 90% accuracy
Just through AI.
without exactly.
Okay. So, there has been a recent shift from lifespan to health span. Now, how would you define health span and what should one do to improve our health span?
Yeah, so for about, say, I don't know, 100 years, the aging community has been focused on lifespan, right? We all want to extend that lifespan, but only about 15 years ago, we started thinking, hey, we're losing around 30 years of life, right, from 60 to 90, in miserable health, right? It's really, really bad. I mean, we see here in the US, people over 65 taking more than 14 different medications for different diseases. So it's really bad. So health span is the concept of the years of life that you are in good health, right? So today we have around 65 years of health span. We want to push that. We want to extend health span, and that health span we want to match it with lifespan, which means we're compressing the years of life in disease, right? In sick, in a state of sickness. And so the idea is it's called also compression of morbidity, when you're extending health span and you're trying to match it to the lifespan of the individual.
So, what should one do? I mean, some suggestions from your side.
Perfect sleep behavior. You need good sleep or you lose cognition. Exercise. These are things that we know already, right? Exercise is the best drug for healthy aging that exists. Good exercise, at least 20 minutes walking a day, at least, right? 20 minutes of your just normal walk. Um, Fruits and vegetables in your diet. They will increase your diversity of the microbiome, which is so important for healthy aging. Um, Lower your stress levels, try to maintain social stress to the minimum. So all these things will help you um, keep inflammation at bay, so keep it low and extend health span and achieve that. Something super important that many people don't talk about is the sense of belonging, the sense of community, having a extended family that you can talk to, friends. That's another very important determinant of healthy aging.
Yeah, loneliness is also a problem in old age. So,
Absolutely, 100%.
Dr. Furman, what inspired you to focus your research on the science of aging? And if I may ask, did it help you reverse your own biological clock?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer the second question first. It did. So I reversed 10 years of my biological aging clock by doing a whole lot of different lifestyle interventions. Simply lifestyle interventions, moving
And
around,
what
taking away my plastic. I'm sorry?
can you mention a few of them?
Yeah, so moving around more, way more, right? Taking away plastic containers, everything plastic from my life, I took away, and then increasing the intake of berries and salmon that has high content of omega-3, polyunsaturated fatty acids, and then keeping so my sleep behavior changed dramatically as well. I typically go very early and go to bed early and eat, in a restricted time fashion. So maybe eat not till late, but till very early in the evening, say around 5 p.m. You stop eating because that defines how well you sleep. And so those are the kind of things that, and what drove me to study aging? Well, I was running the Thousand Immunomes project, which is a largely immunology based study, right? And in a large population, and I was looking at the data, and I became obsessed with all of the massive amount of data that we collected from the blood of these 1,000 people. And when I was looking at the data, the signal all of the signals that I got were aging signatures. So you see, this very strong aging signature in the immune system. So I thought, well, the immune system may be playing an important role in driving aging and longevity. And so that took me to the next level to say, hey, I'm going to go all in and study aging and longevity. That was all 12 years ago or so. Yeah.
And you've continued with that. That's
I
great.
continue with that, and that's the center of my research. I have a large group at the Buck
So,
Institute. I
so
lead
much of
the Stanford
challenge,
Thousand Immunomes.
with so much of pressure and stress. I mean, how do you balance yourself in terms of what time do you sleep and get up? How many hours do you
I
sleep?
go, yeah. I go to bed pretty early, around 9 p.m., 9:30. I'm already in bed. Um, and I wake up also pretty early, around 5:30 or 6 a.m. And I go for a walk. I like to have my time alone without my kids. I think that's important. And so I keep my sleep hygiene in check. And then that also extends to the many other interventions that I do to my life to improve my health span and decrease my inflammation. Now, it's important to measure. So, to measure in India and low income countries, inflammation, you have an option, an opportunity, which is now what we call the healthy selfie. We developed that healthy selfie that with a simple photo, you can estimate biological aging in the body. You map it to inflammatory biomarkers. So you don't need blood to estimate inflammation by simply looking at a healthy selfie program that we have
That's
that
so
can
interesting.
indicate.
Very interesting. Healthy
Yes, so
self.
that can
So
be
healthy.
applied to the low and middle income countries without the need of having a blood test.
So we should popularize it more about this program.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you can help me spread the word,
Definitely,
um,
definitely.
that's my idea. I want to democratize. I want to democratize biological aging assessment, diagnostics of aging, diagnostics of inflammation. That is my mission.
Amazing. That's really very great. Great. So, Dr. Furman, it was excellent having you here. I mean, this time
Thank you.
we could finish it off without any
Yeah,
disruptions. And hope you have a nice day. I'm very sure you must be having a very busy schedule today. And
thank you.
all the best, and all the best
Thank you
with
so much for
your
having me.
mission, your project. It's a very good, interesting project that you've taken up, and you will definitely take it to its destination.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
and
Dr.
have a
Vanita.
great day. That was Dr. David Furman decoding the science of aging and what lies ahead. From inflammation to innovation, this conversation reminds us that aging is not just a destination, it is a design challenge. Thank you for joining us at People's Healthcast, where science meets everyday life. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on our YouTube channel for more such inspiring conversations.